Hey everybody, I'm Zach.
And I'm Jesse.
And you're watching In Depth.
On Now You Know. Be sure to head over to ecoware.us where you can find the shirts that we're wearing. I'm wearing a Tesla patent.
Nice.
Tesla the guy.
Yeah.
And lots of other designs as well. Lots of different products. And every single thing on that site is carbon offset. And for every order, we plant a tree and help cap a well. So it's a very carbon negative order.
And we're brought to you by abetterrouteplanner.com, our favorite EV trip planner with waypoints. Use our link in the show notes below to get a 30-day free trial to the A Better Route Planner premium app and plan your next EV trip with a Better Route Planner. And we're sponsored by BigBattery.com with the best battery prices in the USA guaranteed. If you've got something you need to power from homes to cars, RVs to boats, and much more, BigBattery.com has you covered, offering the newest battery tech. Use the code NOWYOUKNOW to save 5% off your purchase today at BigBattery.com. And time is running out to enter the Climate Exchange raffle and win a Tesla.
Our friends over at Climate Exchange are doing another fabulous Tesla raffle where you can build your own Tesla.
And because this is their 5th year running this raffle, they are offering the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th place winners cash prizes totaling $20,000.
So let me get this straight. Not only could I win the grand prize, which is my choice of a fully decked out Model X, Model S, Model 3, or Model Y, not only will Climate Exchange pay for all the taxes, but even if I don't win the grand prize, I could still win thousands of dollars in runner-up prize money?
Yep. And the best part is that Climate Exchange is a nonprofit organization which educates and advocates for policies to accelerate our transition to a low-carbon economy at the local and state level. And all raffle proceeds go towards supporting their operational budget.
And because they're only selling 4,000 tickets, your chances of winning a Tesla are 1 in 4,000, and your chance of winning a cash prize are 1 in 1,000. Where are you going to find better odds of winning and help the planet?
It really is a win-win. So head over to carbonraffle.org now and enter. The drawing ends February 26th, so don't wait.
All right, so today we're talking with Mark Frohnmayer of Arcimoto.
And Galileo Russell from Arcimoto. This is pretty amazing here that we're with a publicly traded company CEO and founder, and we're with a YouTuber, and now they have united into one. So for those of you who don't know, this is Galileo Russell. He's the YouTuber from HyperChanges, which is a channel we love. This is Mark Frohnmayer, CEO of Arcimoto, a company we love. And they are now more than just, media talking about company. They are now kind of one. Can you guys tell us what just happened?
I think about a week ago, we announced that we have appointed Galileo to Arcimoto's board of directors. Galileo has been not just talking about Arcimoto, but he's been an Arcimoto investor for some time. He has provided along the way a lot of really thoughtful advice about directions that we might explore as Arcimoto. As we talked in the fall, he expressed a real interest in not just sort of campfire advice, but actually really being a part of the direction and strategy of the company. And I thought that made a lot of sense.
Yeah, I was so excited, and it felt like kind of the natural evolution of my journey with Arcimoto. Like I started 3 years ago, like Mark was saying, kind of as a skeptic. Like the company came onto my radar and I was like, this is such a cool, unique, bold concept, but like they don't have that much money in the bank. Like they're not actually building it. You can't really buy it yet. So I kind of made a skeptical video, and Mark actually commented in the YouTube comments on my video, and I'd like never seen that, with all this really thoughtful comments about my video. And then I eventually got on the phone with him and my ideas totally changed. I was like, wow, like Mark is actually an awesome entrepreneur, like sold his last company, like really in this for the right reasons, working on a really cool concept. So then I bought a little stock, ended up going down to Oregon to visit the company, and just was really, really impressed with what I saw on the ground. And then as I followed them, they just kept delivering. Like Arcimoto, they said they were going to enter production. Like every EV company we know, there's always a little delay, but like they actually they're still one of the only companies, I think, other than Tesla, that's gone from this honeymoon phase of displaying a vehicle to actually producing it, and you can buy it and starting those customer deliveries. So I was just so impressed with Arcimoto. And then I really have always been just, talking to Mark about my ideas for the company, unsolicited or not, just throwing advice his way. And I've always had so much fun in those conversations and visits to Eugene that I just felt like, hey, Mark, there's so much we can't talk about if I'm a shareholder and you're a director. Maybe it makes more sense if we can, I can go over the wall, so to speak, and actually become a director of the company, and we could work a lot closer together. And that might mean some sacrifices for what I can or can't say on YouTube, but I just felt like that was such an exciting opportunity to kind of really expand the relationship that had already been growing.
Well, a lot of people are excited about the fact that you are a director. I'm just showing on screen here a lot of congratulations from the Twitterverse. So obviously, this was a really smart move on Arcimoto's part. But I want to get to what is a board of directors? Because I think for a lot of people watching right now, it's something we're used to in movies. Like, I mean, if we go to the typical movie plot point where you walk into the board of directors and there's a bunch of stodgy old guys sitting around a table and they're like, no! Is that what you're going to be doing from now on?
Well, the board of directors is ultimately responsible for the company. The board hires and fires the CEO and is responsible for setting out the broad strategic direction of the company. The board is not there in the trenches every day punching the clock. That is the job of the management and team of the company.
But it just seems like it's one of those jobs that you're just born into. Like, it just seems like from the pop culture view, it's like, oh, well, yeah, he's on the board of directors. I don't know how he got there, but like
you see a character in a movie and the only boards of directors that they interact with are people who are already introduced to the character as boards of directors. They're not like, and hey, we're going to turn you into a director. Like, that's never a plot point in any movie or TV show that I think I've ever heard of. So I think for a lot of people, it's just sort of like, yeah, people are introduced to them as board members. It's kind of like, when you're young and you think that all the adults were always adults or something like that, or your teacher was always an adult. So you've just become a member of the board of directors, Gally. This, I think for a lot of people, is like the first time that they've known someone who is not on a board of directors and has now become on the board of something. So yeah, I just kind of want to walk through it and first of all, how did it happen?
So we first started talking about it as a board in December. I think to your point, Jesse, I think what's really important for Arcimoto that we have, not just diversity in sort of background and skin color and gender, which is of course very important to us, but diversity of age, diversity of thought, as we're looking at a world that is in going through really transformative change. Who better than the hyperchanger himself? Gally was the one who said, "Hey, I just had Sandy Monroe on my channel. You guys should hook him up. And in fact, I'll make that introduction." And 2 weeks later, we had a working arrangement with Monroe and Associates that has continued to bear fruit.
How does that conversation go when you brought that choice to your board and you said, hey, there's this 20-something guy. He's a YouTuber, and I think he'd make a great board member. Did they understand right away, or was there some explaining to go along with that?
I think there was a mix of reactions. I think a lot of it had to do with, one, he doesn't, Galileo, although he's a super smart dude, does not have a track record of public company board experience. So we are his first board of directors that he's sitting on. He runs a very popular YouTube channel. That's a voice that I think is really important for us to have on the board. And so to me, that was I think a real selling point. And I think also it was certainly likewise a point of concern.
So, Gally, a lot of people were really excited for you when you got appointed to the board, and there have been lots of questions on Twitter. I have a question here for you, but you've been pretty quiet, and I'm guessing that's because you probably wanted to figure out what you can and can't say. It's good to have Mark here to kind of educate us as to what you can do. You're a YouTuber. You're used to spouting off Moonshot Mondays and just crazy ideas that could come true. How is this going to be now when you talk about anything to do with FUV? We have a question here from our Now You Know Investor Club. Boet says, how do you plan to cover FUV and EVs in general going forwards now that people may accuse you of having a conflict of interest other than just being a stockholder?
That was kind of one sacrifice I definitely had to make was if I want to be a director of Arcimoto, that means I can't really talk about it on my channel going forward, or as I can still, but not really as much. And my real priority now is to work for FUV. And so, and honestly, I was kind of really excited about that. And I think even though I'm always a YouTuber and I'm always talking about companies, the hat that I'm really wearing is an investor. And that's what I spend most of my time doing is reading, SEC filings, financial statements, thinking about how companies can evolve, making partnerships, talking to CEOs and startup founders and that sort of stuff. So that's the hat where I really sort of bonded with Mark and that I'm leading into for this Arcimoto role. And so even though it seems like I'm always a YouTuber, that's I was like, okay, now it's, more important things are at hand. And I just kind of had to make that sacrifice of I'd rather work for Arcimoto and not really cover it on my YouTube channel, which was kind of tough, but I think is definitely the right move, and I'm really excited.
Let's talk a little bit about private versus public. You're now a public corporation. That happened a couple of years ago. Still, what can and can't you talk about when you're private versus going public? Have you noticed a difference in when you talk to the press from a couple of years ago before you IPO'd to now?
There's a lot you have to be careful of when you are public. One is you can't share material, non-public information with some people and not with others, unless you restrict those people, take them over the wall, and say you can't trade in the stock based on this knowledge. So there's a real consideration of avoiding any kind of insider trading, giving some investors an advantage over other investors, and so that's a real issue, and that has very significant consequences if you don't follow the rules on that front. I think the other thing that we learned, and we learned this early on in being a public company while the stakes were still pretty small, is that you've got to be very careful about what is a statement of fact and what is a forward-looking statement. And I think we've seen this recently with some companies that have gone public with just, through SPACs, where you end up having just a giant bankroll and multi-billion-dollar valuations. You say aspirational things as though they've already happened, and that will absolutely get you burned as a public company.
Does that give you pause, Gali, now that you are, you're still a YouTuber and you're also this director, and I'm sure you do want to talk about FUV from time to time. But before you were just a shareholder, so you could, as long as you said, hey, I'm a shareholder, so take that with a grain of salt. So now, do you plan on just basically not talking about FUV at all, or how are you going to talk about it?
No, yeah, I'm definitely still going to talk about it. I think I just have to be more careful and not talk about like what I think in the future and all that sort of stuff. And the other big thing is I'm really excited to be an FUV customer. So that's an angle that I'm really excited to share with people because, everyone wants an FUV, but there's not that many on the road. And so I put my pre-order down and I've designed it. And so I'm hoping to get my FUV in the near future and be able to share a bunch of content about like what's it like to actually own it and just kind of helping people bring them along that journey of actually experiencing the FUV as a product.
We have another question from our Now You Know Investor Club.
How does Gali see FUV benefiting from his strengths?
Like Mark said, I think just the kind of new angle of thinking about media, I built HyperChange. We have like 100-something thousand subscribers, I don't know, but never spent $1 on marketing. And just kind of this new approach of like content is king, I've learned a lot from watching Tesla and just studying different businesses. I'm trying to bring sort of a new way of thinking to what Arcimoto does, how they announce new products, how we develop new products, how we design the website, the digital side of the company as well. And that's one thing that I was really excited to kind of go over the wall with Mark on, because like you said, when you're public, there's just such a hard line of like what you can and can't know. And it's really restrictive of like, me and Mark are having all these conversations and it kept being like, oh, well, I can't tell you this, or we're not really supposed to allow to talk about that, or like, so it just got to the point of like, I really realized that I felt like I could really help a lot more and be in the room and really strategize with Mark if I was over the wall. And so it's hard to pinpoint like one exact angle, but just these kind of general, and like we were talking about the board of directors before, I think it's such a gray area of what it is. And I think, simply the other side is like governance and that sort of stuff, but it's also meetings with the CEO or like this team of advisors that Mark can call at any moment and just like have a meeting and bounce ideas around and just talk about the company and think about it from all these different angles. And so me being on the board just really allows me to be kind of one more voice in that room.
That's really interesting because, you kind of think of it, if you're the CEO of a company, that you call anyone into your office and here, talk to me about this. Tell me about this. Well, here's what I'm thinking. Mark can't do that. He can't call you into his office and tell you about all of the different plans that Arcimoto might have, because that would be insider trading if you aren't on the board. So I guess that's a big reason why Arcimoto wanted to have you on the board.
When Galileo was talking about sort of the marketing approaches, even just this last fall, he volunteered. He's like, you should do customer testimonial videos. Get your customers to do a handheld recording. So we immediately did that, and it turned into the FUV Life video, which was just awesome because it's the real experience of the product. He's like, he had great ideas on merchandising, great ideas on the configurator, so those were just the sorts of things where, those don't necessarily even have anything to do with the material non-public stuff, but just good actionable direction advice for the company. And that, to me, that's just having him in the conversation on that level. I think one is it does certainly let us scheme about longer range stuff. But I think it's also a recognition of just continuing to bring good value and good direction to the company.
I'm a FUV shareholder. It's my second biggest holding after Tesla, and I'm super stoked that you have Gali on the board. And I never thought of it. I never thought like this could ever be a thing, probably just because I was stuck in this world where I thought, well, he's a YouTuber and you're a public company, and never the two shall meet.
But board members are just summoned out of thin air,
right,
as 50-year-old men. They're never someone that you've met before, and then they're like, I happen to be on the board of a company. I've never experienced that in my life, so I wasn't thinking in terms of that.
And I mean, if you were to pick the two best qualities of a board member, Gali's got them. I mean, not only is he know everything about EVs and the entire EV world, but he knows everything about finance and stocks and everything that, in marketing. So I mean, you're putting all of those perfect qualities together, and I think it's more companies should actually be looking for people like this. Although I will point out, most YouTubers are not Gali. Gali is a one of a kind. I mean, he's awesome at his job as a YouTuber of getting the word out to people, but he's also really smart. And so, yeah, I just think it was a super smart move, Mark.
Well, and I would say the sort of primary, even above those, is just alignment with the mission. And so that to me is so critical, particularly when you think about, the board is there to really carry the long-term vision and of the endeavor. And so having Galileo come on board where that just wasn't really any kind of a question. That's the first box to check.
So now I'd like to bring up some questions from Twitter. Jake Stevens says, is there any compensation for being a board member?
We have a board compensation package, and it just depends on, it's basically you get a certain amount of stock every quarter for serving on the board, and then those who serve on certain committees get a little bit more. The chairman gets a little bit more, but so you get stock.
Gali, can you talk to me about this idea that I think we see a lot on YouTube, especially in comments from people who are like, this is a conflict of interest, whether it's, that we're shareholders in the company or now that you're a board of director member. It seems like a lot of people just aren't exposed, let's say, to this world, and so they think that there's just conflict of interest everywhere. I feel like we walk that line every day. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I totally agree. And I bought, I've never been paid by Arcimoto. I never got a free Arcimoto. I paid full price, and I actually gave the company money and bought stock in the open market. And that's what I do for all the things I support. I literally don't get payment from Tesla, from anyone. And I think that's super important. And it's kind of a shame that some people are always take the negative tone and just assume that it's like that. But that's something I'm really proud of. And I visited Arcimoto on my own dime multiple times and stayed there and just have been giving as much of my time as possible. And honestly felt like I had to kind of prove myself and wanted to show and put up the work up front because being on the board is a really big deal. And I wanted to kind of sort of prove myself in that way and really show the value because I think it's an amazing opportunity to be on the front lines of, cliche, but HyperChange, because Arcimoto, they have this factory in Eugene. They're constantly iterating. It's so exciting. I get the same kind of excited butterfly feeling that I get when I walk in the Tesla factory of oh my God, this is so exciting. You can tell the future is happening here. So just having a front row seat at that, I think is an unbelievable privilege. And just the space that Arcimoto is in, this kind of, new ways of getting people around cities that are more sustainable is just, we're so early in scratching the surface. And so, I was I'll do anything I can to just get a front seat at that kind of roller coaster. I'm
just excited because if you were to write a movie about HyperChange, it just seems like this would be the natural next chapter, that you would join a company that, like you just said, is on the forefront of changing how we think about transportation. And now you're there able to help bring decisions to that company and ideas to that company. And what's also exciting to me is that people get better, in my opinion, when you have two great people in a room or three or four, because then just new ideas are bounced around and come out of it that wouldn't have maybe come out of just one great person. I feel like the ideas that you guys are going to come up with together are going to be even better.
For sure. You start scheming with Galileo for half an hour, and pretty soon you've got 5 new product ideas and 3 new kinds of merch and a complete redesign of the website. I see it as sort of an alignment of interest. He has aligned his investor interest, with his consumer interest, now his director interest. And so it becomes very important to disclose that. And I think is ultimately the way to avoid the conflict portion of it is to do less pontificating about Arcimoto's future on his channel, and more of that just with us in the virtual boardroom.
So we had a question here. Let's just try it out. This will be a test. Question from Daryl Park. He said, "Are there plans for fast or faster charging tech built in during manufacturing?" So if, I don't know, let's just try and give Gali a hand at this. How would you handle it, Gali, if you were asked this question by some random YouTubers?
I would say that's exactly the kind of thing that I used to be able to comment on, but now I can't comment on. And I would say Mark could talk about that.
Yeah, and there, if you would just have to remember that during a couple of earnings calls over the last summer, I got asked that question. And what I said basically was, the short answer is yes, but we have not announced any plans for that at this point.
Driving around an FUV in Eugene, it already charges really fast. Like I will say, like overnight, you're going to get a full tank. And I was driving around Eugene for like 4 days and I wouldn't have even needed to plug it in. So as an FUV consumer from that angle, I could say like the charging speed, because the Tesla has a huge battery pack, right? The Arcimoto's battery pack is a lot smaller. It actually has a higher MPGE than even the Tesla. And so you don't need as much power to fully charge the pack. So even if you're on your slow outlet, you can I think you can do pretty much a full charge in one night, even from a standard slow outlet, right, Mark?
Yep. Yeah. And that was, it just sort of goes back to some of the early thesis points of the Arcimoto we've conceived this platform for daily utility, the kind of trips that almost everybody's doing almost all the time.
There's a lot of people on Twitterverse who want to know, like Kern does, watch out, he's going to make you buy Bitcoin. So I guess the question for both of you is that, in Arcimoto's future?
Sore subject. We have different, this is why opposing angles of thought are so important, because even though Mark and I are so aligned on some things, I would say this is where we have a strong difference of opinion.
Well, yeah, and I would say I'm not a cryptocurrency speculator. I have particular beef with the Bitcoin algorithm simply because it sucks power. And the more compute you throw on it, is like the higher it goes, the more people are just buying machines to do nothing but run essentially cryptographic algorithms, finding cryptographic needles in the haystack in order to get those coins. But I am not averse to cryptocurrency. I think that there are a lot of reasons why that's going to be an ever-growing piece of the economic puzzle. I'm just not sure that I'm attached to that particular one that happens to be the leader today. And I do think that there are a lot of people out there who basically, bought into Bitcoin and now they're promoting the hell out of Bitcoin, which makes sense for them, but not necessarily the long-term solution there.
And in a slightly different vein, I can say one thing that really impressed me while I was studying Arcimoto for the past couple of years was how efficient they were with money. Like we're seeing a lot of these other EV startups raise a huge amount of capital. Rivian's raised almost 5 or 6 billion, hasn't delivered a single car, and that's kind of the status quo now. But when I saw Arcimoto, I was like, this is totally different. Like they've navigated almost a triple black diamond of going public in this new way, being able to raise capital through the ups and downs of that cycle, and at the same time being extremely efficient with that capital spend. Like it sounds like, okay, maybe I believe they spent about 40 million to bring the FUV to all through development to bring it to market and actually production and do it vertically integrated. I mean, I almost thought that was unprecedented capital efficiency and would put them in the place of like Tesla and Arcimoto are the only two companies that I was like, wow, they're spending a lot. So people don't realize how much capital discipline there's been. But that was something that in my studying of Arcimoto really stood out from almost every other EV company. Was like, wow, they're extremely efficient with every dollar that comes into the company, and it really matters.
And it's a culture thing too. I mean, you have this, Mark is a perfect example. You don't like Bitcoin because it's just inefficient. And you run your company cash efficient, and your vehicles are energy efficient. All of this kind of very tied to efficiency kind of thing. It's all part of the culture of your company. And I think when we look at some of the other companies like Rivian that you mentioned, or even like maybe even Lucid, a lot of money comes in. We're going to build big batteries. We're going to have big ranges. And, are the cars going to be as efficient as an Arcimoto? Heck no, not even close. And, I don't know. I think that that's an interesting parallel to draw with, all of the different companies that we've seen entering the EV space. Tesla is one of the most efficient, both like EV car manufacturing brands to date in terms of how their vehicles are efficient. And then also how they have been so, as you said, efficient with capital.
Gali, I wanted to ask you, has it sunk in yet? I mean, you've gone from being a YouTuber where you talk to thousands of people every week about good ways to invest their money in this growing future, this EV revolution. And now you're on a board where your ideas can go directly into making products. Is that I don't know. That just is blowing my mind as I'm talking about it with you.
It totally blows my mind. And I feel like the luckiest person ever that I've just like, my life has kind of unfolded that way. But at the same time, it's also just really been this natural evolution of like, I read Warren Buffett's book when I was like 14 and just started rolling my snowball and trying to, I was back in a previous life, I was an investor in a company called Jones Soda, this local soda company. Now I'm like, soda, that seems so lame. But we like went to the shareholder meeting, but there was like 5 people there and me and my friend Julian went, and like, we wanted to be there. We wanted to put our voice, wanted to have our opinion, wanted to just say what we thought and, advise the CEO, even though they were like, who are these 20-something year olds that someone actually showed up to the board meeting, like what's happening, or the shareholder meeting. So for me, it's been like this kind of lifelong passion of just finding these companies, trying to help them in any way I can, and trying to help explain and tell the story about, why they're doing what they're doing, why the financials look a certain way, why their strategy makes sense, and why, like, to me, the really big disconnect that makes me so happy with the EV and the Tesla and Arcimoto taking off is that it's really invest in the future you believe in. Like, I think we've seen a real mindset shift of people who want to they're like, you know what? The world needs to change this way. Like, I should start giving money to the company. Like, I was talking to Mark, I was like, investing, I feel like it's kind of lost its thing. Like, you invest in something because you want it to grow. You want to see that product exist. Like, to me, that's exactly what I felt with the Arcimoto. Like, I rode one, it didn't exist, but I was like, the world needs this. I want to give this thing money and help in any way I can because I want to see like 1 million of these on the road. And so I just feel so blessed that like, I can, work with Mark and help him and kind of take our, like he said, campfire ideas that we almost just got so wrapped up on. Like, I would talk to Mark, once every couple of weeks, when I wasn't on the board, just because I had so many ideas and had so much stuff I wanted to tell him. And so I feel like really honored that they kind of recognized that I was maybe adding some value and we could kind of take it to the next level with this board appointment.
That's a really interesting point. The fact that I think the same way you do. When I'm investing my money, I want to see that money used, that capital used for something good. I think today, so many people see the stock market. They don't understand the difference that you talk about a lot on your channel between investment and trading. I see them talking all the time, like even on our Slack channel, FUV is up, FUV is down. It's like, I don't really care about the weekly movements of the stock. I care about putting in my money. I'm a long-term investor, and I'm not really going to watch it that closely because I want you guys to use the money well to build whatever you're going to build. And I love the fact that you just brought that up. I want people to get this message, which is if you believe in something, put your money in it. And that is how we'll move ourselves forward. Don't put your money into Exxon just because you think you'll get a dividend from them. That's not what this is about. When we heard the news a week ago, Jesse and I just were high-fiving and we were just so stoked for you guys. I'm super bullish now more than ever before because I just think that this is like a dream come true. This is like a dream team, quite frankly. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just so excited to see you guys working together. Congratulations. I
mean, I also kind of wanted to just give a shout out to you guys because I feel like you're like, whoa, YouTubers on the board of directors. And I'm like, I feel like I was there with Now You Know for the past few years covering Arcimoto. And so in many ways, I feel like it's kind of a win for the whole YouTube community, and just wanted to give you guys a shout out for your coverage of Arcimoto because I think it's been awesome over the years. I've been a viewer, so I've loved to see that.
Wow, this is awesome. I'm so excited for Gali. If you're excited too, leave a comment down below, hit the like button, maybe even give a tweet to Gali, just to let him, give him your support.
Yeah, and tweet out to Arcimoto too. Let the board know that you support what they just did. Because, this is great. Getting young people on boards, young, smart people on boards, that's what we need.
Yes, young, smart people.
Yes.
And as a young person, you may disagree if I'm smart, I would have to say that's a good choice.
Thanks so much for watching, everybody. We'll see you next week. Now you know.